Guruve Gaura Chanjaya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam devotees. So, of course, we're continuing with our questions and answers. So, sometimes it is like a drought, and then sometimes it's like a monsoon. So, quite a few questions came in yesterday, and maybe some even before that, but I just saw them yesterday, and they were relatively short questions. Perhaps I'll just take them one at a time. I'm going to try to get through three main questions, and then, as I mentioned yesterday, some questions I did reply to directly because they were either topics that had been previously discussed in a more full-length presentation, or a topic which I've explained that I've already done videos on, and also I just think putting the topic to rest has become appropriate at this point, which was about the Swarup of the Jiva. So there are presentations that have already been done. I don't think I could add or say anything additional regarding that. There was one question in here, which was, it's an interesting question, so I'll go ahead and explain that. But in general, that topic I've kind of put to rest, and I'm not particularly so interested in dealing with it, on a continuum in that sense. So, but the first question that came in on the phone is, at what stage is Raganuga Bhakti? So that was the question. I think I've also dealt with that in videos in different ways, but just as a brief answer, and that's the idea here, is to just give very short answers to some of these questions. In general, Raganuga Bhakti is really based in the concept of the aspiration of your worship. So that's the first thing to understand, that if you have aspiration to worship Shri Krishna or Radha Krishna in Vrindavan under the line of conception of Ichadhara coming from Sriman Mahaprabhu, this is itself Raganuga Bhakti. Mahaprabhu is explained there. What is this shlok? Savajagatera More Vari Bhakti Brajabhav Paiti Nai Sakti. So Mahaprabhu himself explained that through the process of Hari Bhakti, one cannot obtain the moods of Braj. So therefore we'd have to say that the practice that we're doing, because it is Braj, Radha Krishna targeted, then it really can't be Vaidhi Bhakti, because Vaidhi Bhakti does not lead to that goal. At the same time, certainly our acharyas have spoken of eligibility or adhikar in the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. And the acharyas have mentioned generally that comes in the stage of ruchi. So because it's mentioned, Tad Tad Baba Adi Madhyure Shuti Dirapekshate Nasa Sastrana Yuktingscha Tal Lobat Utpatti Lakshanam. When lob arises, a transcendental greed for the mood of service to Shri Radha Krishna Yugal, then at that time, this is the actual adhikar at which the genuine practice of Raganuga Shadan becomes available. Prior to that, we are following what is called Raganuga Pravritti. So we're practicing in aim of moving to that goal, right? Because we can't say that, again, we're practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, because I already quoted the verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita explaining that Vaidhi Bhakti will not be able to give Braj mood. So some people confuse this for the idea of following rules and regulations. Well, you cannot do any kind of sadhana of any sort without following some vidhi. So vidhi means following some rules and regulations of Shastra. One should rise early in the morning, one should attend Mangalarti, one should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, take Diksha, Shiksha, and develop Vishwambhena. So all of these things, whether you're practicing Raganuga Bhakti, whatever you're practicing, these elements are essential elements or vidhis of any kind of sadhana. So we should not confuse following rules and regulations with what is Raganuga or what is Vaidhi Bhakti. So in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Hindu of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's given two very simple explanations which are very easy to digest and remember. Shravanam Kirtanandani, Vaidhi Bhakti Sudan, Shravanam Kirtanandani, Sastra Sashana Bhayena, Ataha Vaidhi Bhakti. So what is Vaidhi Bhakti is when rules and regulations are practiced under fear of violating those rules and one having a consequence for that. So here the idea is that if you have aspiration to obtain Vaikuntha and you do not follow the proper Vaidhi or rules and regulations towards that goal, then you won't obtain your goal of Vaikuntha. So that bhaya, that fear of not obtaining your gati or goal, that is one kind of fear. Another kind of fear are those who don't have a fixed goal, but fear punishment under dharmic consideration by not following sastric rules and regulations. So if your sadhana is inspired by that kind of fear, sastra sashana, punishment of sastra, right, then it is called Vaidhi Bhakti, right? If Shravanam Kirtanandani Abhiman Vrajindananda Shah Seva Prapti Lobhena, if you have the Abhiman for obtaining the service of Vrajindanandan Sri Krishna in Braj, then this is called Raganuga Bhakti or Raganuga Pravritti. It means the progressive path of going towards Raganuga, right? And Rag Anuga, we've explained before in other videos, means to do anugatya to the eternal associates in the particular mood of Braj for which you aspire. So Ragatmic devotees mean the eternal associates, whether it be Subal, Sridham, Yashoda, and Nanda Bhava, or whether it is Lalita Visakha, but especially in Madhurya Rasa, it means following in the mood of Rup Manjari, Rakti Manjari, Lavanga Manjari, Guna Manjari, Vilas Manjari, etc. So this following of their moods is called Anugatya. So because they have rag, means they have spontaneous swabhavik attachment, natural attachment in love to Sri Krishna in their very Atma, then following their mood is called Rag Anuga. They are called Ragatmik. Following them is called Rag Anuga, right? So in the stage of Ruchi, then the Adhikar, to have a natural rising of true spiritual greed. A person may have notions or interest in something. It's not the same thing, right? We may have a notion or interest. Oh, I've heard from Guru and Vaishnavas the glory of the sweetness of Braj, and I would like to do that. That attraction is genuine, but it has to be subsidized with Adhikar. Therefore, we have to practice sadhan bhajan according to rules and regulations, because if a person follows no rules and regulations whatsoever, what is this verse? I'll say in English, that if a person follows no rules and regulations, then they simply cause a disturbance in society. What is it? Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pantaratra Vidim Vida Akantaki Hari Bhaktir Utpattayeva Kalpate. So if you don't follow any kind of rule, regulation, anything, then it will simply, utpat means it'll be cause a disturbance, right? So everyone is following some kind of rules and regulations. It's only a matter of the conception that you have, which differentiates what is Vaidhi Bhakti in pursuit of Vaikuntha Bhakti versus Raganuga Bhakti, which is in pursuit of Braja Bhakti, right? So you can read more both in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, especially in books like Rag Vatma Chandrika, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad. So here, all these things were explained in detail. So that was just like a synopsis to get an idea of when that eligibility will come. In the first level of Ruchi also, Atta Ruchi Bhajan Vishai. So one of the ways to have a barometer of whether or not genuine greed is coming is that the first level of Ruchi is Attaha Ruchi Bhajan Vishai. It means it's Ruchi in Bhajan. Excuse me. It's Ruchi in Bhajan itself. So Bhajan is composed of Nam, Sankirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, doing Seva, Mathuravas, etc., Sadhu Sangha. So if you see that a deep greed arises in your heart for those essential elements of Bhajan, especially Nam Bhajan, then you can have a barometer, oh, Ruchi is coming. If I have especially intense greed for Harinam and Harikatha, right, leading to desires for Seva, etc., this is symptom that greed has genuinely arisen in the heart. So it's not something that's esoteric, nor is it something that is based so much around how I perceive myself, my abhiman. Oh, I really like hearing Rasik Katha. So if you really like hearing Rasik Katha, do you equally like chanting Harinam, which is the embodiment of that Katha that you're hearing, right? And also, do you have taste for understanding foundationally the elements of Rasakatha? So do you have greed to understand what it is Rupa Goswami wrote in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Upadeshamrita, or Raghunath Das Goswami's Manasiksha? So we can't confuse Nasa Sastrana Yuktingscha, that greed void of dependence on Sastra and Sastra Yukti. Sastra means obviously Sastra, and Sastra Yukti means the logic and reasoning of Sastra does not become a criteria for taste. So that's a different thing than saying, oh, I don't have any interest in reading, any of our foundational granthas. I just want to hear the Rasi Katha. Because what will you understand or digest if there's no foundation? If you've not read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and then later Ujjwal Nilamani, how you'll understand what is the components of the Ras that you like hearing. So it's not logical that somehow or another, void of those things, foundational things, that there's a genuine greed for Rasakatha, right? So that we have to be careful of too, because the greed will first appear in bhajan life. And those instructions given by our Purva Acharyas and our contemporary Acharyas of how to practice bhajan, if no greed has arisen for that, how can we say there's greed for the goal of bhakti? There's no greed for the practice that allows us to obtain the goal, but I have greed for the goal. That doesn't line up. So the way to measure whether or not genuine greed has appeared is just to see, in my sudden bhajan, has greed appeared for bhajan? Okay, so let me open my phone again here. And the next question was, can you please explain spiritual versus material potential? So this was based on the whole discussion on Swarupa Jiva. As I mentioned, I'm not really dealing with that topic. We've put that topic to rest, but there are already videos done on it, and there's so many other discussions on it and everywhere. So, but this particular clarification, if you will, I don't mind discussing. So I've mentioned that what I had understood from my Guru Padma and from our Puravacharyas regarding the nature of the inheritancy of bhakti, our sarup, our rasa, etc., was that my Guru Padma's statements on this referred to potential. So some people feel that to mean possibility, like material potential. Material potential is a possibility that something will happen based on observed qualities in someone which could lead to that outcome. But this is not what potential here means. Potential here means a absolute potential based on an absolute fact that we are constitutionally the Das of Krishna, the absolute potential for a specific relationship with Krishna and a particular mode of service to Krishna and everything else. That is an absolute potential. And that potential is realized in incremental stages through the practice of bhakti. And only through the practice of bhakti does the internal energy or Swarup Shakti of Bhagavan in its full manifestation come into the heart of the jiva and reveal all of those things that we're speaking about. A particular mode of service, a particular form, a particular rasa, etc., etc. So it's not that simply by the removal of the covering of Maya, those things are there, but it requires a descent of Swarup Shakti. So when I spoke about potential here, which is, even my Guru Padma has literally spoken the word potential or potentiality, this is what is meant. So it's not a potential that may go unfulfilled. And in fact, if you look at the commentary of Jiva Goswami on the verse, what is this verse? Kriti Sadya Bhavet Sadya Bhavasa Saranabhila Nityasira Sabhavasha Prakritam Riddhi Sadyata. In his tika, in his commentary, he says that though the bhav is nityasira, in other words, prem is an eternally accomplished reality, it is not produced from our sadhana bhakti. Our sadhana bhakti only avails the jiva to be able to connect with a nityasira bhav, right? That nityasira bhav, Jiva Goswami says, will certainly in the future appear due to the extraordinary functions of Swarup Shakti. So you could look at the commentary of both Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami, and they're especially saying the same thing, that certainly this will happen. So it is not a possibility. It is a absolute potentiality that if you're practicing bhakti, certainly by the practice of bhakti, at some point or another, the Swarup Shakti, when it descends, it will produce this reality. You understand? So here potential doesn't refer to simply a material possibility based on observed qualities in someone that would lean towards that outcome. Here it is an absolute potentiality because constitutionally we are the Das of Krishna. Dasa Bhutta Hari Eva Nanya Sheva Kadachana. And we cannot be something else. Anything else that we consider. Riteyatam Yatpareta Chatmani Tadvyaratmano Mayam. Even in Chapter Shloki Bhagavatam it says, if you see something and you don't see it how it's related to me, you should know this to be my Maya. Right? So anything besides understanding that we are Dasoshmi, anything else has been produced by the Avidya Shakti in conjunction with the Hamkara, Asmita, Upadi, etc., and produced a artificial presentation of who we think we are. But in reality, everyone is Das of Krishna. That is a reality. Realizing that Das of Krishna is an absolute potential in every jiva. If that potential is not an absolute fact, then that means a jiva could could actually be in the material world eternally. And the very nature of being anadibala means something that has no beginning, but it does have an end. So you cannot be in the material world eternally. You understand? Therefore, it's an absolute potential that the dasitva of a jiva will be realized at some point. Now, when that is, that's another question. But it's an absolute fact that it will be realized. And When it is realized via the facility of the Discenta Swarup Shakti, it not only removes the ignorance, but it reveals all the potentiality of the specificity of Dasita, right? Other than that, someone may, by Gyan, Yog, other means, they may realize the Atma void of avidya, but it doesn't necessarily reveal a rasa with Krishna, a particular service mood, a particular siddhadeha, etc. It doesn't reveal all of that necessarily. So we went over all of that in the videos, and you could look there, right? So absolute potentiality versus material potentiality, hopefully that was clear. Absolute potentiality is a spiritual reality, whereas material potentiality is a possibility of something happening based on observing qualities which lend itself to that possibility becoming an outcome. Somebody is very talented as a karmic carryover in music, so they call a protege, and they may turn out to be a great musician. But who knows, 5 years down the line, they may become involved in something else and decide to become a baseball player, or on the negative side, they may go with unfulfilled potential and end up being, something less desirable, right? So material potentials can't be equated with the absolute potential based on the constitutional reality of the jiva, right? So I explained that potentiality has synonyms like latent, dormant, unmanifest, all these kind of things. All right, so hopefully that was clear. Last question is, why is it that we can't have, why is it that we can't have attraction to many forms of Krishna, like Nrsimha Dev, and at the same time Radha Krishna, and does having relationship with Krishna mean all the forms of Krishna? So it's an interesting question. Basically, bhakti, one feature of bhakti is called being ekantik. Ekantik means having a fixed mood toward a particular manifestation of Bhagavan, right? Just like, even in a mundane sense, and I don't want you to take the comparison here as absolute in relation to Krishna, but you can get an idea. There are many varieties of ladies and gentlemen in the world, but normally we find, for those who've accepted Grihastha life, you find one woman or one man with whom you can develop a, quote, loving relationship, right? Because in the material world, there's not really love. Kaitavam rahitam prema na prema manushloke. In the material world, there's not really love because everybody has self-interest, and therefore praying by its very definition doesn't exist in the material world. Now, praying by its definition, savatta damsarahitam yarapi damsakarane yad bhava bandhano prema parikirtita. That love by its very definition is something that's unconditional, and conditioned beings cannot express unconditional things. So, Rupa Goswami Pad has said that Dadati Pratagrinati Goyamakiti Prichiti Bhunkte Bojayate Chaiva Sadvidam Priti Lakshanam. There's a quality of Priti or love involved in Vaishnava dealings, because the center of those dealings is Krishna. Other than that, there's not really love in the material world. But for sake of our example, we're saying that if someone has many women or many men, normally among them there's one person whom we have a ekantik or one-pointed relationship with of love, right? It doesn't mean that we don't appreciate the rest of womankind or mankind, right? It only means that we found resonance in a relationship of love with, quote again, with one person, right? So in the same way, there are unlimited forms of Bhagavan. Ramari Muteshu Kala Niyame Natishta Nanavatar Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu. Krishna Swayam Samabhat Paramam Pamanyo. But among all, Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. So, though Krishna has many, many incarnations, the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching ekantik bhakti towards Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And Krishna means with Srimati Radhika, with Vrindavan Dham, with all of his associates, etc. Now, even within the category of Krishna, there is Mathurash Krishna, Dwarkadish Krishna, Vrajendra Nandan Sri Krishna, So even there has to be a kantik mood. So we will give our attention to Vrajendra Nandan Sri Krishna. This is stated by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad. Arajo Bhagavan Rajisha Tanayastad Dhamma Vrindavana. And how we will worship Brahmaskastyat Upasana Brajavadu Vargena Yakampita. Then he quotes that Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. That Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our essential sastra, is the spotless proof that this methodology of upasana or worship of Krishna, as the gopis worshipped or loved or served Krishna, is the highest form. So, in the course of doing our sadhan bhajan, in the stage of ruchi coming into a shakti, which is sort of mature stage of our bhakti, then it will become crystallized or clear to us a particular taste in a particular mode of service. Right? So at that time, a instruction is given by Guru how to crystallize that, right? How to meditate on it. And then when Swarup Shakti descends, it manifests first as a crystallized realization in the heart of the jiva. Once the jiva gives up this body, that very same realized conception takes on the vastu of a spiritual form. So you will see the crystallized siddha deha in your realization in bhava vast, or the stage of bhav. And that bhav root that you saw will have a vastu, a substantive body, in wherever Krishna is performing his prakat lila when you give up your body. Right? So, being ekantic or one-pointed in our worship is very important. Also, at the time that we receive diksha, the actual nature of diksha creates one-pointed focus on a particular form of Bhagavan. Right? When you receive the mantra, Jiva Goswami says that it comes in two forms. Not two forms, but it comes in two levels of understanding. One is Dhyate Param Gyan, Kshiyate Papanasanam. One is the dispensing of transcendental knowledge from the heart of the Guru to the disciple. And the other is the Prabhav. Both things are the Prabhav of Swarup Shakti. The Prabhav of Swarup Shakti to remove obstacles. If the sadhaka, aspirant, sishya, disciple will follow the process given by Guru, then inherent in following that process is the potency for the removal of any obstacles in obtaining the goal. The part that is Divya Gyan is also explained. Divya Gyanam, Shiyatam, Divya Gyana Shrimati Mantre Bhagavat Swarup Gyanam Tena Bhagavat Sambandha Visesh Gyanam Sha. Right? So Divya Gyan means Divya Gyanam Shrimati Mantre, right? Bhagavat Swarup, right? A particular form of Bhagavat Swarup, which is your Ishtadev or ideal of worship. That's embedded in the mantra you receive at the time of Diksha. And Bhagavat Sambandha Visesh Gyan, a particular knowledge of what kind of relationship you have. That is all there in a bij, like a seed form in that mantra. So as you're chanting your mantra daily with dhyan, with mantra artha, chintan, contemplation of the meaning of the mantra, gradually, as the heart and chitta become more and more purified by the influence of bhajan life, right? Then the unfolding revelation and manifestation of that mantra becomes more and more clear in the heart of the jiva. All the way up to the stage where it really fully manifests in bhav. Understand? So ekantic worship is very important, and the only way that can happen is by receiving shiksha. Because taking the shelter of a spiritual master, Guru Parasraya, and then Tata Diksha, taking this initiation, but not understanding what the initiation is, then you can't get a clear picture. And then it also says, to get that clear picture, shiksha is necessary. So from your Sri Gurudev, or someone who is like your Sri Gurudev in terms of realization, etc., one should take shiksha, right? And then get illumination of the mantras given by Guru. right? Because if you don't get that, it's like anusthanik. Anusthanik means something that you do as a habitual practice, right? So every day you chant the mantras, you chant your Harinam, you attend the Mangalarti, you do everything, but you feel a sense of having been purified from the gross misunderstandings of being the body. You feel a sense of purification because the lifestyle is in the mode of goodness, rising early in the morning, eating sattvic foods, etc., right? But don't mistake that feeling for realizations of the growth of bhakti, because then we could become stagnated by that. Because two features mentioned in Bhagavad Gita of the mode of material goodness is that it conditions one to a false sense of knowledge and conditions one to happiness. So we should not find contentment only in that I found a culture, lifestyle, friends, and food that I resonate with, but we should actually look for the depth of the practice. Now, everybody, according to their sanskars and so forth, so on, they may have more or less drive to do that. So I'm kind of speaking, but everybody's an individual, and everybody's karmic unfoldment and also their bhakti sanskars are all different, right? Everybody has a unique DNA in this manner. But if you apply yourself deeply in the process, means with understanding and with meditation, everything else, then the revelation of the mantras, everything come about, and organically you'll see that, yes, there's a natural attraction to a particular form of Bhagavan, right? And that attraction, as it grows, turns into a particular ruchi for service to that form of Bhagavan in the light or in the model of an eternal servant of that form of Bhagavan. You understand? Even if it's not directly within the sort of main line of conception of Mahaprabhu, let's say someone has deep mood of worship towards Lord Ram from so many bhakti sanskars, so many previous life, whatever it might be, right? And that being their, desire, then by the practice of bhakti, that will come out. And in the mature stage of ruchi, it will be seen, oh, I have deep desire, serving like Hanuman. You understand? But we shouldn't make an artificial imposition of those things. We should actually wait, practicing sincerely, trying to practice with depth and understanding. And in the stage of ruchi, mature ruchi, it'll become very apparent and there won't be any doubt about it. Right? Even earlier than that, there'll be deeper and deeper impressions and implications, which you can then, put your faith in. But especially in the stage of ruchi, Guru can do ruchi pariksha. Ruchi pariksha means Shri Guru can examine, oh, you have this type of taste. And then bhajan, they can give bhajan instruction how to intensify that and crystallize it. And then only waiting for the descent of Swarup Shakti to give it actual crystallized form and everything in the chitta of the jiva. All right, so hopefully those were short answers, but hopefully they were helpful. And if not, please, you can write again. And also, I've always mentioned that I put these things on this format because there are many more mature devotees, and they can also write and answer some of these questions as well. And that just adds to clarification and so forth and so on. All right, my dandavat pranam vanchakal patrubhyascha kripasindhavyevacha patitanam pavaneva vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai, hopefully everyone's having a great Kartik Maas. Jai Radhe Radhe.